What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem heroes, and this is going to be my first impression and the stat speculation of the Fallen banner that we have got this year, and I'll also go over if you should be pulling for these units or not. And if you're new here, then do consider subscribing and leaving a like because I'll be covering these units even in more depth once we know their stats with the full banner review. So let us begin, and the first unit that we have is Fallen Dimitri, or Feral Dimitri I guess, and he's again a Lance Infantry unit, just like his Brave and Legendary version. So he's got Vengeful Lance as his preferred weapon. It gives him +3 attack stat, and he just has attack speed solo built into it, which is pretty good offensively. The secondary condition of this weapon requires him to have more attack than foe's defense, and if he cannot make a follow-up attack, then he pretty much gets the Astra Blade effect from Sword Katria. So this allows him to get better damage output, and this effect pretty much is going to be active against Maltet, Brave Hector, Edelgard with Amir, and also Fallen Edelgard. Any kind of follow-up negation skills that are going to be preventing his follow-up attacks, he's going to be able to get this kind of extra damage. And this also works against units who are going to be much faster than him. Sword Katria's Astra Blade only needs to meet the attack check, but here Fallen Dimitri also needs to make sure that he's not making a follow-up attack on those kinds of enemies. Of course, he's going to be having extremely high attack stat, but if the foe has stacked up a lot of defense and if something like an attack debuff hits Dimitri, then his damage output is definitely going to be suffering. So I feel like this is definitely a pretty tame weapon out of this entire banner. I think not having -1 special cooldown, the slaying effect, definitely hurts him quite a bit as a Gale Force unit. If he had that, then that would be really good. And this kind of effect is basically him trying to get at the units which can not get naturally doubled by him. But I feel like if he straight up just had null follow up here, that would have been much better, because he cannot really run null follow up because you don't want to change his slot B skill, which is really good. So this is pretty much his way of getting through those kinds of units. So this kind of Dimitri is pretty much gonna be like a hit and run unit because he cannot really Gale Force as effectively, not having that -1 special cooldown. Not to mention his exclusive slot B skill does give him the fire sweep effect. So the thing with units who do not have -1 special cooldown, and if they're a Gale Force unit, they actually want to get attacked by the opponent so that they can trigger their Gale Force in a single round of combat. So Dimitri cannot really do that if he's running his exclusive slot B skill. So he pretty much ends up being this kind of hit and run unit that uses Canto from his slot B skill and also uses the extra movement from AR Tempest to just hit for a lot of damage and then get out of there. That's pretty much his role. And I feel like Legendary Dimitri overall is a better Lance Infantry unit than Fallen Dimitri. Fallen Dimitri is going to be very annoying to face though in the hands of AI, but I feel like in the hands of player, Legendary Dimitri is going to be a bit better. His exclusive slot B skill is pretty much a better near trace. This does require him to be solo though, similar to his weapon. So if he's alone, then he can pretty much inflict -3 speed and defense debuff on the foe during the combat, and he also gets the fire sweep effect, so the enemy cannot really counter attack, which is definitely really strong for a hit and run unit. And he also gets the Canto and remaining movement +1, which actually gets added up with AR Tempest, so he can definitely be a pretty good hit and run unit with this skill and AR Tempest that he comes with. So overall I feel like he's a strong unit, but Legendary Dimitri does exist, and there are definitely a couple of issues which I mentioned with his weapon. And this is his stat spread which I'm going to be expecting on him. So he's going to be taking out this Lance Knight, and as you can see he does get some extra damage on his attack stat because he cannot really double up this Lance Knight. So I think he's going to be having really high attack stat at base 42, and he's going to be extremely fast at base 43. His bulk doesn't really matter too much, I would say, because he does get the fire sweep effect from his weapon. So he's basically like a player phase unit most of the time. And if you want like an enemy phase Dimitri, then Legendary Dimitri is much better. And Atrocity in general is much better than, whatever Vengeful Lance does for him in terms of damage output. Atrocity just gives you the true damage based on his attack stat, and also has like the Spectrum Smoke. So that is a very strong skill as well, but this Fallen version of Dimitri works better in the player phase as a hit and run unit because of having that Canto. So that is Fallen Dimitri. And then the next unit that we have is Fallen Male Morgan. So this is pretty much from the Future Past DLC from Awakening. He's a red infantry mage. Seems like a really good year for Morgan fans because Male Morgan just got a weapon refine, and here he comes with this amazing new alt with really good art. So he's got Tome of Despair as his weapon. This gives him +3 attack, and at start of combat, if he's above 25% HP, which is going to be most of the time, then he can inflict -6 attack and resistance debuff on the foe during the combat. And the secondary effect of this weapon pretty much adds up the visible buffs that Morgan has got and the visible debuffs which the opponent has got. So it basically adds those things up, and depending on what value you get, you're going to be getting those kinds of effects. So if the value is 5 or more, then the foe cannot make a follow-up attack. So you pretty much get a follow-up negation, which is strong and definitely not that hard to get. It's definitely easiest to get, and he's almost always going to be having this. And if the value is 10 or more, then he can get an auto follow-up, which is really good because he's probably not going to be very fast. And if the value is 15, then he can also inflict the guard effect on the enemy, which is definitely strong. Here they pretty much show an example. So if Morgan has got +6 attack and resistance as his visible buff, and the foe has got -6 attack and resistance as visible debuff, then the combined total of these values is going to be 24, which means that it's more than enough to get all of the effects. I know this might sound a bit complex, but honestly, the bottom line is that you want Male Morgan to have visible buffs and you want the opponent to have visible debuffs. And all of this is achieved with his Attack Res Menace, which is his Slotsy skill. So this is a new line of skill, which is basically a better threatened skill in a way. So at start of turn, it can inflict -6 attack and resistance on nearest foes within 4 spaces, and also give +6 attack and resistance buff to the unit for 1 turn. So the nearest foe's condition pretty much means that he's going to be able to target most of the time only one enemy, unless there are multiple enemies who are away at the same distance from Male Morgan. So most of the time this is going to be affecting one enemy, and he's going to be able to absolutely murk that enemy because his weapon is going to be fully active and the debuffs do make him really strong. So this tome does have pretty good synergy with debuffs, and it's not the hardest thing to do. You can use stuff like Aversa, Iago, Sudden Panic, Timari Dagger, Fortune Bow. All of those options are there to increase the debuffs on the foes, and it can pretty easily make it so that you can consistently trigger this weapon, get the auto follow-up attack, get the follow-up negation, and also inflict the guard effect on the opponent. So he's definitely a pretty strong mage, and he can function in both phases with his weapon, which does make him quite versatile. He does have Attack Res Solo 4, which is a pretty good skill for him, and this pretty much leads us to believe that he's not going to be very fast. Sabotage defense is not all that great. I mean, yes, you can get the debuffs, but lull skills are better, and you can even run Null Counter Disrupt or other sloppy skills. Lull skills are also going to be annoying for him to face because it will negate his visible buffs, but still, his weapon is pretty easy to activate for the most part. And this is the stat spread I'm expecting on Male Morgan. So here, he's going to be triggering his Iceberg, and he does get 25 points of extra damage here. So you can pretty much use that to calculate his resistance, which is going to be pretty good at base 37, and he can hit hard as well with that base 37 attack stat. I think his speed is definitely going to be lower, and his defense is definitely going to be a bit higher, which is definitely really good defensively. He doesn't really need his speed that much because he can get the auto follow up from his weapon, so it does make sense that he might be slow. So Male Morgan appears to be a really solid red mage, honestly, and he can be pretty tanky. The next thing that we have is female Morgan, and she's also from the Future Past DLC, but she's not a mage this time. She's an Axe Flyer, which is pretty interesting, and she has got Axe of Despair. So this weapon gives her -1 special cooldown, which means that she functions really well as a Gale Force unit. And again, the weapon's condition is same as Male Morgan. It's just that she gets the defense debuff on the opponent, while Male Morgan gets the resistance debuff. It's pretty much the same, stopping the enemy's follow-up attacks, getting an auto follow-up, and also inflicting the guard effect on the opponent. So she does come with Dive Bomb, which is really good, and now this skill is going to be present in the normal summoning pool. And she's got Attack Defense Menace, which of course synergizes really well with her weapon. So she can pretty much function as a Gale Force unit pretty well because of Dive Bomb and the fact that she gets -1 special cooldown from her weapon. And she's going to be having competition from someone like Jill, who can also do that, but Dive Bomb is basically built into Jill's weapon, and Jill also has the opportunity to run something like Wyvern Flight and even get more debuffs. But of course, female Morgan does have more effects on her weapon, and she can also function in the enemy phase, but most of the time she's going to be used in the player phase as a player phase unit, as a Gale Force unit. So this is the stat spread which I'm going to be expecting on her. So I think she's going to be having pretty high defense and attack stat. Definitely really high attack stat unless I'm like messed up while calculating her attack. But I think that she's definitely going to be pretty hard hitting type of unit. And I think resistance is definitely going to be something that she's going to be having less stats of, because she doesn't really need that all that much. Defense, attack is all she really needs, honestly. Even speed is not the most important thing for her because she gets the auto follow up. So here she destroys this sword fighter, and the final unit is going to be the star of this banner, Fallen Edelgard. So she is a colorless armor beast. She's the second one after Mufasa, and that makes her very unique, and she completely blows Mufasa out of the water because she is just extremely stacked with her effects. So here she has got twin crest power as her weapon. So this gives her -1 special cooldown, and she can also inflict -6 attack and defense debuff on the foe during the combat. And she also has Weary Fighter built into this. So that is really good for an armor unit. And then if she's transformed, then she pretty much gets the Raging Storm effect, which Legendary Edelgard has. And then the other conditions that she has is pretty much similar to what an armor beast would have. So she needs to be not near a human ally, and she will transform, get +2 attack, and also get the distant counter effect. So this is extremely stacked up, and her slot B skill is an exclusive skill, Armored Wall. So this is pretty much a better special fighter, having that better HP threshold. And the secondary condition of the skill requires her to be transformed. So if she is transformed and above 25% HP, then she pretty much gets the damage reduction on foe's first attack in the first combat of either player phase or the enemy phase. And this is really good with the fact that she's got Weary Fighter in her weapon. Now, to pretty much summarize the effects of her weapon and her slot B skill, I've made something like this, and as you can see, she's got a lot of effects. So let's break it down. The -1 special cooldown in her weapon allows her to be a really good Gale Force unit because Gale Force becomes a 4-turn special. So right here, she is much better than Legendary Edelgard when it comes to Gale Forcing and just attacking. And she also has Raging Storm in her weapon itself, so she doesn't even have to run that in her slot B skill, which definitely is really good. So again, better than Legendary Edelgard. She also has -6 attack and defense debuff on the foe, which does make her really tanky. Weary Fighter is always going to be good because she's going to be quite slow, and this helps her quite a lot. Raging Storm means that she's got an inbuilt Gale Force, which is absolutely amazing and does help with her mixed phase potential. So that's a free Gale Force right off the bat. Of course, it does require her to be transformed. She also gets the beast conditions, of course, upon being transformed, which is +2 attack and distant counter. So having innate distant counter gives her really good enemy phase potential. It just frees up her slot A skill, and that's why she's got the ideal skill. And then from her skills, she gets Special Fighter, self-sufficiency, so she doesn't really need to run any kind of healing special, and also damage reduction on foe's first hit in the first fight of player phase or the enemy phase. And this is really good in combination with Weary Fighter. So she can be really a non-unit to take out, and keep in mind that she's going to be appearing in Tempest Trial and Forging Bond as a recurring enemy. So she's going to be very annoying unit, and she's definitely going to be the end of your auto battle most of the time. Extremely stacked unit, very powerful, very versatile. She can function in both phases, has a free Gale Force, doesn't even need to run Heavy Blade to get the Gale Force charges because she's got Special Fighter in her slot B basically. And she's pretty much a better Legendary Edelgard who can be blessed up for any blessing, can be used in any season of Arena or Ether Raids, and that makes her very strong. Being colorless also means that she doesn't really have to have that disadvantageous matchup against Weapons Triangle. Of course, Raven Tomes are a thing, but being colorless is really good, honestly, for nuking and for tanking especially. So that's a very strong Edelgard, and she's definitely going to be a very busted unit that you can easily get access to by sparking. So expect to see her a lot because she is honestly very strong. And even though she's really strong, there are a few things that can definitely be used against her. The first thing is that she's got the armor weakness, so having effective damage against her is going to be helpful. But keep in mind she can always run Sylvalan Shield in her slot A because that is open. And she's also weak to beast effective weapons. We do have free Petrine, but beast effective weapons aren't really all that common. Null follow-up is also going to be useful against her, but only to a degree because the thing is that she can retaliate back with bonfires with Armored Wall and her preferred weapon. So if you're using null follow-up with the unit, you gotta make sure they can at least like survive her bonfire. And the fact that if she's got the damage reduction active from her armored wall, then even with null follow-up, it is gonna be harder to kill her. Ruptured Sky is also an option which you could use, and especially young Ines, who can have a pre-charged Ruptured Sky with Time Pulse, means that he can just pierce through her damage reduction and also do more damage with Ruptured Sky, which is really good. And of course, Raven Tomes are going to be helping you against her, but she does have that damage reduction, so it does make it quite annoying. And keep in mind that like pretty much half of her effects come from transformation, so it's really important for Fallen Edelgard to transform. So if you want to use her, then you gotta make sure that you're using dragon units and beast units that can make her transform, or you pretty much meet the appropriate condition. And if you're gonna be facing her, then your best chance of attacking her is when she is not transformed. So you can pretty much try to make it so that she can trail behind other units where she's not able to transform in something like Arena Assault, because that is gonna be happening a lot. And she's also gonna be having very high BST, so expect to see a lot of plus on Fallen Edelgards in Arena. And this is the stat spread which I'm expecting on her. I think she's gonna be hit like very min-maxed. She's gonna be dumping her speed stat, and she's gonna be having very good defense, very good resistance, and she's gonna be hitting really hard. Now, this animation is a bit goofy, but I haven't really played Azure Moon route. I've only played Claude's route, Ashen Wolves, and also Edelgard's route. So like I knew this kind of Edelgard did exist, but I haven't really seen this kind of like animation. I'm laughing, but honestly she's a very strong unit. And she's gonna be aging to be really good unit, so she's definitely the unit you want to spark if you are trying to spend any kind of orbs on this banner. Sparking is gonna be a thing on this banner, and she's gonna be a really good unit as a one-off copy. She's gonna be amazing in the in-game content, and also really amazing in Ether Raids as a Gale Force unit. In Ether Raid's offense. In Ether Raid's defense, I mean, she will require some support so that she can transform. Mostly she's going to be better in the hands of player, I feel like, which is definitely good. But still facing her is going to be annoying with all of the shenanigans that she has got going. And of course, because she's going to be having 185 BST, she is a really good unit to be used in Arena. So that is Fallen Edelgard. Absolutely powerful and strong unit, and sparking is going to be available on this banner, so that is good. Just have to spend 135 orbs if you're summoning on full circles with the summoning ticket. And then finally we have got a Grand Hero Battle unit in Orson. So he's going to be a red sword cavalry unit, probably with rune sword, because that's how he is in Sacred Stones. I'm actually looking forward to his dialogues and how it is going to be. And rune sword pretty much means that he's going to be having some kind of self-healing. So that is going to be interesting to see, and I hope that he's a very good free unit, because I've definitely been looking forward to him being on a Fallen banner. I mean, he's not on a banner, but as a free unit, I hope that he's really good. So that's pretty much my first impression on the Fallen banner. Let me know in the comments your opinion and thoughts on this banner. And I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support. And if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Edelgard's distant counter when she's not transformed. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.